Hey guys, Joe here, and here we are for How to Gardevoir Part 1, where I go over some basic guide stuff and of course my first impressions of this character and a few tips and tricks. And then of course in Part 2 and 3 I'll go a lot more in depth. As well, make sure to vote in the comments down below and the straw poll who you want to see next week. And with all that said, let's get this going. So my first impression of Gardevoir is that Gardevoir is a very defensive fighter based on keeping opponents away and trying to space them, making so they can't really get in and just hitting them while they're far away. That's essentially what I'm thinking about when I think of Gardevoir. Luckily for Gardevoir, she also has a huge variety of different moves to do so and to space the opponent, which is really nice. And if you can use these moves right, you can spam out the field with ease. You can make so the opponent can't approach you at all, and you can actually just plain out win a match. It's really nice as this character. It may be somewhat hard to learn how to do this, but yeah, you can outspam a lot of people pretty easily. As well, other than just, the sheer amount of spam that you can throw out, a lot of her moves are also really great traps, and they stay on the field for a long time, which allows you to set up even more traps, or just allows you to spam out your more spammable abilities, or just lets you run up, go for a grab. You have a lot of really good stuff, be it traps, be it just random projectiles that you throw out quickly, and of course your counter is pretty good too, which all allows some really nice defensive playstyle, and yeah, that's just what I really think about when I'm playing this character. A different thing is that as well, her close range attacks can often be used to try to hit the enemy far, so that she can go back for her long range hits. Many of her close range attacks hit them pretty dang far, further than a lot of other characters I know, and this lets you get back to that camp game, which is essentially the thing I'm going to be talking about for this whole guide, because I feel like she's so great at that. With that being said though, with knowing that she's good at that defensive camp game, I also have to say that her combo game isn't as bad as one would really think. I mean, you'd think that, this campy character would have an awful combo game, but it's not too bad. Sure, it may not be the best, but, it's not too bad. And the nice thing about it is that she has a lot of combos that will set up into range attacks, and the plain combos by themselves do good enough damage. Of course, they're not the highest damage in the world, but they still do a respectable amount of the enemy's HP. As well as another thing, she also has a counter that she can use in the air, and this is so great as it allows her another option in the air to beat the opponent, and can just beat people who consistently try to attack you through the air like Blaziken. You can just go for a nice counter in the air, hit them down, and it's a really nice counter versus a lot of people that, try to rush you down through the air. A lot of times people try to rush you through the air, to dodge your projectiles, but with Gardevoir, you can counter that, so that's really nice. Finally, I'd say that her Mega is pretty nice. It makes a lot of her range attacks power up a little bit, either going faster, doing more damage, or maybe even both, and maybe even comboing into some stuff a little bit better. As well, it makes her a bit better as far as the defensive, weak, and strong attacks, so that's nice. The only problem for me is that the burst attack itself really isn't my favorite, as it's pretty easy to dodge, but if you hit it, it does okay. The Mega in general is pretty good, maybe not my favorite Mega in the game, but definitely a nice power-up. So, as I said before in this guide, the main playstyle of Gardevoir, as far as I can tell from playing her and playing versus her, is a very defensive playstyle. Now, this means you want to get out all your moves at range and keep the enemy at bay, if possible at all. Often, you can use these range hits in tandem with each other, which allows an almost impenetrable wall in front of you, if you do play well enough and if you can really want to use which of your far range options. You must try to keep the enemy out as much as you can with the projectiles alone, and of course, a good grab/counter game will also be irreplaceable here while playing defensively. Many times, the enemy will only expect projectiles, so these two things, that being counter and grab, can be really great mix-ups to get some nice free damage. Overall, as this person, you need to be very good at defense, but as we all know, a strong defense is also a strong offense. So, as far as the phases in particular, I feel like you really shine in the field phase, and you beat out most other people's field phases, at least from what I've seen in the past. You can spam a huge variety of different attacks very quickly, but you also have a few options that take a while to get out there, but the nice thing is that those ones will apply consistent pressure, and the opponent either has to shield or try to counterattack them, and you can spam other projectiles while they're doing that. You can form a great wall as her, and it's very hard for an enemy to get in versus a Gardevoir. She has many anti-airs as well here, including her, of course, jump counter, that hit in front and beside her, and in general, it's just very hard to get past all of her hits without taking any damage at all, so most of the time, the enemy will at least have to take a bit of damage against the Gardevoir player. Of course, in particular, the aerial counter is just great in this phase, as a lot of people will try to jump over all your low-hitting projectiles to get a nice hit in, but if this happens to happen, you can just go for the aerial counter, and only really Machamp's aerial grab can counter you in this situation, otherwise, you're pretty much fine. As for some negatives about the field phase, if they do get in, there's really not that much you can do here. You can try to go for the mash and X strategy, but that's about it. Also, you need to keep enemies out, and versus fast foes, this can be pretty hard, as they're just really fast so they can get in. Yeah, that's a bit of a problem about her. Finally, a lot of your moves can be counter-cancelled by the opponent, so that makes them a lot less safe, but luckily, many of your other moves cannot be counter-cancelled, so it's fine enough. As for the duel phase, I always have had a little bit of problems in this when I'm playing Gardevoir. Again, you have a ton of far range hits and more than most enemies have, but they just don't seem quite as strong here. A lot of them can be clawed through with someone like Weavile, and it's much harder to keep enemies away in the duel phase. Still, you can do it. You of course have a lot of moves like back Y and down X, as well as jumping Y, and just most of your moves with the A button can help you out here. You have quite a few big hitbox attacks with your strong attacks, which is really nice as well, and it is definitely possible to keep your foul if you're really good as Gardevoir, but if you're really not the best, it can be a bit of a problem. As for the main bad, yeah, it is easier to get in here versus a Gardevoir player. There's just plainly less space for Gardevoir to run around and use range attacks, and that less space equates to an easier time for the enemy to get in. As well, it's hard to get out of a combo once they start one as Gardevoir, so again, you really need to be playing this mode well to win it. As for a few tips and tricks, the first thing I'd say is try going in once in a while. Now, most people online will think that you're just all about this pure defense, which is one thing that you're mainly about, but if you throw in a few offensive options, just as the multi-hit X button, or in the dual phase, just your X and Y attacks, a lot of times this can work wonder on the enemies. Many times they really won't see you going for these combos, going for these melee attacks, they'll think that you're going to keep going range, but if you do go melee out of nowhere, it can be a really nice mix-up, and a lot of people just don't see it coming. The thing after that is that you should try out the Latios support set. It's personally one of my favorites, and it allows you a lot of time to keep the enemy afar, because they're stuck in that box, and it lets you keep going on your onset of attacks from afar, and as well, it does let you use your slower charging moves a lot easier, so that's nice too. Finally, I'd say, keep in mind your aerial counterattack. Keep this in mind a lot. It's probably one of the best parts about Gardevoir, at least in my own opinion. A lot of the time what you want to do with this is try to bait an enemy into using an anti-air, and then versus that, you can go for your counter and watch them feel the pain. This especially does well against the people that jump in the air and try to anti-air you. Oh, it's just really great. Finally, to be honest, I don't know how strong this character will be. She has so many great long-range hits, but her close-range game and combo game suffers a lot from it. She feels a little bit clunky in my hands, and I can't really tell if these range moves will make up for that or not. I can see her doing well, but at the same time, I can see her doing badly. I guess we'll really just have to wait, and then I'll tell you a little bit more once a big tournament comes around. And there you have it, How to Gardevoir Part 1. I hope you did enjoy. Of course, there will be a Part 2 and a 3. They go a lot more in depth, but hope you still enjoyed. Also, these guides will probably keep getting a little bit smaller and smaller as the later characters I don't know quite as much about because I'm not playing them as much, but I hope that it's still enough information to, whet your appetite for the future parts of these guides. Hope you guys all enjoyed, though. Comment down below who you want to see next week. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll be seeing you all next time.